When did the first Shane come to America, and and what country was he from?
Came in 1905, I believe it was, from Russia.
What was his name?
Abraham Shane.
What was his profession?
I don't really know what he did. It, it could have been a baker because when he came to the United States, that's the first place he worked was a bakery in Norwich, Connecticut.
When did your family move to Fitchburg?
See, 19, must have been about 1906, probably. Because I was born in 1908.
Why did Abraham Shane come to America?
He came to America to avoid serving in the Russian army when he was 18 years old. See, they grabbed him right then and there. Minute you came 21, you had to serve in the army because I don't know how much of a period of time, but he didn't want that. He saw what was going on, so he didn't want to be part of that. So he and a friend of his took off during the night, and they hid during the day and traveled at night. They finally got to England, and from England he came to America. It was probably 1905 or six, something like that, in that area. And then after he went from Ellis Island, when they came there, he arrived in Norwich, Connecticut. And that's where he worked in the bakery. And he didn't like, there was another friend of his in a rooming house. And the guy was stealing all his everything he had. This guy was stealing it. So he said he wanted to come to Fitchburg because I had an uncle here at that time. And he got him to Fitchburg, and we lived down on at an apartment on the second floor on Summit Street off Lunenburg. Going toward the John Fitch, where that Dodge place is. You get down that little street. The house is gone now. Where I was born, that's gone.
Did he marry a woman here, or was he married in Russia?
He was married in Russia.
So he and his wife both came.
That's right. Both came from Russia.
That's it.
Then he went to work at Ivor Johnson's. They were making firearms and bicycles. And he worked 6 days a week. He got about $3 a week. And he got a little tired of that evidently. Of course, we were just kids. And of course, I didn't realize what was going on, And he decided to go in the fruit and vegetable business. So within a year or so, they went back to New York. And my dad was on his own. He conducted the business. Then he went into the poultry business. Poultry and eggs, and not too much in the fruit. There's more poultry then. And in the 30s, after the war, he bought a 1923 Chevrolet truck. And this friend of ours was teaching him how to drive it. So I used to watch what he did, because I could drive that truck. Of course, my dad, he wasn't no speedster. He go along, he got his license. He could read and write. And then he had these racks built so he could put a whole crate of tomatoes or whatever. And he had bananas on a big bunch. He had a hook, could hook them on, And if you needed, cut them off. You needed 3 or 4 or whatever. You needed a whole bunch. So much a pound, nickel a pound or whatever it was. And if it got so that bananas were toward the end of the week, it beginning to ripen, well, you probably would give a lot of them away to the kids. And nearly the fruit. You get all kinds of fruit, plums, oranges, apples, grapefruit. But a lot of times I would go with them and school was out. And that horse knew every stop, every house. Go along the south side. They all knew. And they would wait fresh eggs and fresh vegetables. And pretty soon they started to ask if he could bring, he had the chickens. That's when he started the poultry business. And he said, no, he couldn't fool around with poultry then, you know. It'd have to be on a larger scale than bringing a woman and a chicken or two, and maybe nobody else on the street wanted any. No place to keep them cold. You had to have no refrigeration, so you couldn't. He said he wouldn't take a chance on bringing any meat along.
Mm-hmm.
Even some of them even wanted to know if he could have beef, liver, and stuff like that. Sometimes couldn't do that. Then we were exclusively in the poultry business. We used to send the truck to New York. We had 3 trucks. 3 1-ton pickup, a half-ton pickup, and a 2-ton dodge. And we would run them into New York sometimes twice a week. Our brother Bob would go, my other brother, the one that died, he used to go. We had this friend from Worcester, and he used to help out, and he used to do a lot of the driving. And I used to go quite often to New York. We'd leave about 5:30 in the afternoon. We get in at about 2 o'clock in the morning. You'd have to wait till about 4 to unload. As soon as we get unloaded and get the money, we'd start right for home. We'd stop in Middletown, Connecticut. I always remember the restaurant. They always had real good food there. We'd hit there about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And we would come home, it would be probably around 5 or 6 o'clock at night. And the next day they would go out and had orders to pick up more poultry. You send the pickups out and they pick it up, and then at night, late that afternoon, they would feed them and then load that truck, and Bob would go with this guy Frank from Worcester, and they would make the trip. That was it. Two a day, 2 a week. Sometimes it all depended on, weather. Too damn hot, why you wouldn't take a chance on poultry. They could die.
It was die in the heat.
That's right. So he had to be very careful. Take a day like this, low humidity, and they're packed in there pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And they tend to crowd, and they smother themselves. Like
They had to be alive when you delivered them.
Oh, it had to be. Oh, yes. If they were gone, forget it. They would give them to whoever was around there. You want them, be our guest.
I didn't realize I thought it was just a local chicken business. I didn't realize you were driving all the way to New York.
Yeah,
delivering them.
He had the customers that would buy the kosher ones. The rabbi would have to take care of that. He had quite a few customers for that.
Yeah, that's what I thought that was exclusively what he did.
That's right.
But
and they would start like Thursday afternoon. And quite a, I don't know the exact amount, but it'd be a lot of chicken. And he would pluck them, clean them all off, and he had the orders already, so he knew he had a big pad, and he would keep track of all the whoever wanted. If he wanted two, he wanted three, or whatever. And the next day, Friday morning, he started delivering them, along with his fruit and vegetables and whatever. That's when and it got so after the war, the there was a farm cooperative here, and they used to they knew you were going to go get some poke or something. They would give the farmer another penny or two more. They saw your truck heading out. Seemed like they'd follow it wherever you were going. They would call that guy on the phone, say, got some poke? The guy said, yeah. But he says, man, here to take it. Oh, we'll give you 2 cents more a pound. But we didn't know what was going on. All of a sudden, the guy said, well, changed my mind. And here we were up in New Hampshire, just over the border, like in Townsend and the little town there, Brookline. And the guy said, well, I think I'll keep it a little longer. And you knew something was going on. Well, it got to be that they were big. They had trailers. No, they would take a load into New York probably 4 times. We used to put on the truck that went to New York. So then he knocked that whole thing out. We just closed it down. Of course, during the war, he could get gasoline and tires and whatever he needed because he was in business, still in the poultry business. It's the only way he could get anything because everything was rationed. Of course, I was gone. 3 of us were gone. Bob was the only one home, and he and my dad were taking care of the whole deal while we were gone. And I was the first one home. I came home in 46. And my brother Joe, he came home. And my brother Isidore, he came home after him. Everybody was home, but then there was no poultry business, so everybody was, the brother next to me, Isidore, he and my dad he started this poultry business again. He had a little 3/4 ton pickup. They would bring poultry they slaughtered them they had a plant in Worcester where they used to dress them. They would bring them down there. Then they bought a bigger truck. They used to take them the guy, the price wasn't right there. They take him to Woburn, Mass. Had a big dressing plant there. Thousands of farmers come from all over the place, and the automatic thing, go right through the line out, and they're all done. Automatic pluckers and all that stuff. Unbelievable. And they go into water in big barrels of ice. They pack them in there, and there'd be trucks waiting to get them. They're already sold. Restaurants or wherever they went. Supermarkets. It was quite a interesting thing.
When you got back from the war, you decided not to go into the poultry business with your father and other brother?
No, I went to work after the war. I went to work for my uncle had an international harvester business, tractors and all kinds of farm equipment
Mm-hmm.
on that hill. Now they're going to build a Walmart there now on the way to Lunenburg, that
Mm-hmm.
long hill. And I worked for him under the GI Bill. Got $20 a week. I got 20 from them, and the government paid, I think, 10 more. It was $30 a week. Even less than that. In fact, one of these up to now. Anyway, they decided to. They were having some trouble with the international harvester, but yeah, they had orders for a lot of tractors and big stuff, especially down around Pepperell and some parts of New Hampshire. And these big tractors, and they couldn't get them, so they decided to do something else. Of course, I was out of a job. So that's when I went to work for the Independent Mark in 1950. Uh, stayed there till I retired.
You retired in what, 1970?
1973.
Okay, Kevin, your turn. He's been very patient here. So,
Okay.
what do you want
Do
to
you have
ask?
any regrets? Do you have any regrets?
No regrets.
What was your job in World War II? What did you do? What did you do?
I was a radio and radar. I went to radio school in Wisconsin, and radar in Florida, Boca Raton. And while I was at Brooks Field in Texas, that was near San Antonio, they sent me to school for the Northern Bomb Sight. That was top secret. I went to this building, and I was told to report to a colonel there. My CO said, called me in the office. He said, you put on your ODs, don't dress regular like jeans, just a shirt, your hat. You can have a special pass to ride the bus to Kelly Field. You get the bus out here at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you go see this colonel. Okay, yes, sir. I got there. Then this guy asked me all kinds of questions. And this another officer come in and talk to me. Where was I born, and where were my folks from, and where were they born, and all this stuff. How many brothers that I had, how many sisters, all about your family. Kept saying to myself, what this is all about, Finally, he said, we'll go to lunch, and we'll have a little conversation till about 2 o'clock afterwards. So he took me over to the mess hall. We had lunch, back, talked some more. And he said, tomorrow when you come, you report to that building like this one here. No windows, no nothing. Great big fence, electrified fence around it. Says you just push that button at the entrance. And you hear a voice say, give me your name. And the door, you push a button, the door will open, you go in, you stop, and you to tell him who you want to see. Some lieutenant. And I said, okay. So I did. Next day I came back, went in, got to the first place. GI there, some sergeant. He said, "What's your name?" And I said, "I was a PFC then." He said, "Well," he says, "you'll have to have a special pass." So he issued me the pass. There's a thumbprint on the other level, thumbprint. He said, "It's okay. Push another button, you go in another room. Talk to another civilian. Talk to me about different things." And he had all my grades at radio school, radar school, and all that stuff. He's looking over. And he said, "You'll have to have another pass from here." He says, "You got one more room to go." He says, "I'll take you in there." And there was some GIs in there. They were working. It looked like a big globe. They were all there at individual tables, and they were this woman, civilian instructor. She he introduced me to her and told me who she was, and he said he's going to start school here next week. This class would be all done Friday, and if they all graduate, they'll really be doing something if they make it. In other words, it's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Well, I'm trying." She said, "That's right." She said, "You got pretty good grades." She had all the information on me. She said, "You come here Monday." So I had 3 passes. I may still have 1 or 2 of them in the house here somewhere. And all with you don't talk to anybody. You come here Monday, you will be instructed. You don't tell anybody what you're doing, what the school's all about. You're working on the Northern bomb site. Top secret. And she said, "We'll go through you take them apart and you put them together. You take them apart and put them together. And you do that for a whole month. The last Friday of the month, that's when they have the last test. She gives you you put certain parts together. So I learned right away, you take it, whatever you put to the left, to the right, front, back, that's where the parts are going to go back in. But there's a gyro in there. That has to be with a spring tension so that the pilot can overcome the bombardier. After the bombs have dropped, he's got to be able to get that plane out of there. Run in the act or whatever, be under fire.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got to be very precise. When you assemble this thing, it's got to be within 1 or 2, she called it. Otherwise, you're out. You get special paper and a special pencil, lead. You don't take none of it with you. When it's all done, we burn. So you got to have it up here. Whatever you do, better learn these parts. Whole month. So that last Friday, to middle in the morning, she said, "This is it. You got 2 hours, and it better be right." It was about 20 of us. And so, big clock there. She said, "Look at," she had a timer there. She says, "Go. Take them apart. Do this. Put them together." Of course, you had to make darn sure you had them in the exact spot. Somewhere a little, you had to use a jeweler's glass to see exactly pretty intricate those gadgets you put in there. Got it all assembled. She said, "Would you all through? Raise your hand." And she had a machine that would check that thing out. Boy, of course, you're trying to stay loose, but you you only got 2 hours. Here you start. Well, you start left with all the parts in, right, come this way, up in the back, and you adjust the tension, get that gyro set. And it was about an hour and 45 minutes. And I said, well, it's all together. When it works, put my hand up about work. She says, you kept them in a great big vault, like a bank vault. She says, the equipment is in here where we test it. You come with me. Well, then she put it on the machine. She said, just about perfect. You're about a 1. A 2 would have been, you got a 1. No, father would have no problem with this one. He could overcome the bombardier. So if you said you pass, so then that's when she gave me the pamphlet. It gives all the detail, the whole schematic of that equipment. She said she put it in the bag and put a seal on it, like you would seal a letter with wax.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, you give that to your commanding officer. That goes in his safe. She said, now we're going to have a party. So that colonel and that major, all these people came over. He asked her how many passed. She said 15 out of the 20. 5 guys failed. So they were out. They didn't get it. But the rest of us got that thing. And the only time I saw that was when we left to go overseas. The CEO says, I'll have to carry that with me. He says, you can't have this, he says, till we get to where we're going. And it'll be in his office in the safe. You need a manual for everything. He said, you can come in any time to use it. So that bomb site used to be in all Obamas. Every morning we'd have to go down and check out all the equipment on the line. They were going to go out on a mission. Check all the fighters and all the bombers. Radio, radar, identification equipment. There was a special signal in the tail of the plane. Stood about that high, that wide, and about that high, the box, and it emitted a certain code. That was IFF, friendly identification, friendly foe. And you better be sure that they're working. Because if they're not working, these guys could get shot down. They lock on them with radar. I said, yeah, I know that. So we used to check them all out, check all the equipment. Pilots are down there waiting. Teams. Most of them were captains, some majors. This guy, he was from Colorado. He was a major. He was quite a guy named Coleman. And he said to me, he said, do you know this one that I fly this one every day? I said, I know it. He said, I want you to be sure you check everything out. He said, I want you to do it. Not the others. Okay with me, Major. He said to me, said, you'll get a little reward at the end of the week. Some Saturday afternoon, he says, you know what my tent is? I says, yeah. So there'll be a case of cold beer up there. Bring it back to the boys. There's tent. I said, okay. So That's what we used to do. Every morning, you had to go down the flight line, check all the equipment out. And about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they would take off. That's 5 o'clock in the morning. Within a half hour, they were gone. Fighter escort, as far as they could go, they only could carry so much gas. Fighters would come back in. The bombers would continue on. They'd be heading back about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And they were hitting Rabaul. That was supposed to be like the Rock of Gibraltar. The Japs were on there, and they were bombing the hell out of it every day. And you could always tell when there was wounded aboard or if the plane had been hit. Landing lights would be on, right, very bright lights. And of course, they'd already called it on the radio for ambulances. They'd be lined up on the side of the strip, just waiting. Some would come in, no problem. Others would come in, wounded aboard. Part of the wing shot off. 2 engines gone. And they would, some that were shot up that they didn't even bother to repair them. We didn't have that kind of equipment. I mean, aluminum to. So they took them, they called the grade gun, towed them down there and up into this great big pit. We used to go down there and take some of the radios off. And a lot of the equipment that we could use, tubes, they had all the radios were tube radios. They weren't like they cut away. Yeah.
So you're using them for spare parts then?
To take the Aussies. They gave the Aussies a bunch of P-40s. We had the P-51s and the P-47s. Over then. Everything was in Europe till Europe's was over. That's when we get the good stuff. And when they come over, they had nothing in them. We had to install all the equipment now. I put in all the radar, put in all the radio stuff, VHF. And they wanted one T-38 Hussons. Take out all the guns and all that stuff out of them. They took it. Oh, just the radio and the radar and the identification that program on them. It was a reconnaissance. They had about 3 of those. Fixed up 3 of those. So if one had a problem, there was always one ready to go. That worked out pretty good. And the radios that we took one out of a bomber and we converted it to you could get on DC current. And we had DC at first. Then they come in with some generators, and you could have either AC or DC.
Mm-hmm.
The lights at the in your area. So we took one of the radio. I took it into the shop, into the hangar, and fooled around with it. Cut out some circuits, and fixed it so we could pick up. There's one station on the island. They used to play music all the time, give us some news, not so the Japs could pick it up, but they tell you there's a party going on somewhere or somebody, or this mess hall was going to have just some ordinary stuff, no big deals, So this, I had that in the hangar. I used to listen to that while I was working on things, you know. This lieutenant come in. He was the charge of the radio section. He said, "Boy, so I'd like to get one of them." I said, "Oh no." I said, "Hey, that belongs to the major." I said, "That's part of the." He wants that in the hangar. He says, "Could I get one of those?" I said, "We'd have to go see him, not the boss here." 2 days later, he come in. He had a tube in his hand. Said, "Could you test the tube for me?" I said, "Yeah." I looked at it. It was a tube out of a radio, a civilian radio. I said, "We don't have tubes with civilian radios." Well, they said, "That's funny. Can't you fix that?" The element, you could see the element was gone, you know. In other words, could you put that together? I just looked at him. I didn't say anything. I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Lieutenant, but that tube's gone. You'll have to send to San Francisco to get one of those." He says, "Well, okay, so I'll go up and see the major." The major must have told him no because he came back down. He said, "Guess I'll have to send San Francisco to get a tube." He says, "Any way you could fix one of those tubes you got there that you have in stock to do?" I said, "No way. Different prongs, all different." I said,
Different
"Each one prong performs a different performance in this tube."
Yeah.
Oh, he was the radio.
He was the boss.
He was the boss in the radio section. Imagine that. I said, "I'm up to see the major." I said, "Hey, this guy must have been just about 30 days. He must have been just about 30 days. He wasn't wet behind the ears yet." And he started to laugh. He says, "I think you're right." Because I told him no anyway. He's out. He says, "Ignore him. Don't pay any attention to me." He says, "I'm the boss here. If you want to come see me." I said, "That's a lot." He was really something. This friend of mine, the 912 Signal Corps, moved in. They were quite a ways from us, from our unit. And they did a lot of stuff with telephones and stuff like that. A lot of different hookups between the generals and the command staff. So he, guys, said something about, he says, "We should see if we can get a two-way radio hookup here." And they wanted to get they had just fixed up a little place where you could, our area where you could, after you got through work and had your supper, go over there and play cards or do whatever you want to do. They wanted to fix it up so we get fix up a radio with a couple of speakers. I said, "Yeah, we can do that. We can take care of that." So we did. Went down to the graveyard. We got a couple of radios and speakers hooked them up. Oh boy, tuned right into that station. They were having a ball. They invited all the Aussies over to see it. They were having a ball. Oh, he says, "You Yanks have got everything." But those Aussies, they were great people.
This base was on New Guinea, or where was this located? This airfield.
This was in on the island of Biak, Dutch East Indies, and pretty close to Borneo and Java in that area. And that's when they dropped we had what they call a black alert one morning about 2 o'clock. The guy from the captain's office came up. Of course, I was in charge of the tent, so I was the sergeant there in charge of the tent. He just touched me. Of course, we always kept our weapon right in the sack, with a clip right in it. I woke. He went, and he whispered to me. He said, "Black alert." I said, "What's that?" He says, "Imminent Jap invasion." He said, "Get out and get a box of ammo." He said, "I'll wake the rest of the guys up while you're gone." So I went back, got a whole box. And I had about 6 clips. I had them all loaded anyway, all the time. And he said, "Just stand by. No noise, no lights, no smoking, no nothing. Till we see what develops." Okay. And the captain said to me, "I don't want to hear anybody, no noise, no talking, any description. No radios running, nothing." Okay, we waited. You know what they did? They, I didn't know it at the time, but they had, Japs were trying to gas us. I didn't know about it till I got home. I was used to read the New York Times every day all about it. There was an attack on Biak, and they gave a date. And that morning, they were trying to gas the island with poison gas. But crosswinds blew it all back out to sea. They were out there, the ship evidently, one-man subs, and that's what they were trying to do to get us. Well, after that, they bombed the hospital. We were only a quarter of a mile away from the hospital. They had a big red cross on the roof. They bombed us about 3 o'clock in the morning. They killed 92 that night, right in the sights. Of course, if we heard the Yak war, we knew something was wrong, so all lights were out. And we were all told that that's the airport with the script. We got in jeeps, and they had bombed all the planes that were sitting there, all loaded with cargo, waiting to go somewhere. They had dropped these 500-pounders. They blew up the whole strip. They missed the canteen and the tower. So of course, tower was calling. They had a code. No planes will land on this island. Go somewhere else. In other words, get lost. Don't come here. We got a problem here. They hit another gun. Gasoline gun. Orange and black smoke. You knew it that was. He went there to, I don't know. These people. And while I was there, in the canteen, this black kid came in. I looked at him. I said, "This kid looks familiar to me." Fitchburg. I said, I looked at him. I said, "Your name Fix?" He said, "Yeah." It's like that. He was kind of a talking kid anyway. Yeah. He looked at me. He didn't recognize me, I guess. I said, "You live on Moonbright Street?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Who are you?" I said, "My name is Billy Slack." "Oh, yeah." He said, I know your brothers and the father." He says, "Oh, yeah." He said, I said, what the heck are you doing? He said, I'm waiting for a ride. Well, I said, you're going to have a long wait. There's nothing moving out of here, I'll tell you. He said, what happened? I said, they blew the whole joint up during the night with close. And they cleared out all the racks. They had a crew come right in there with the big heavy equipment. They filled all the holes and the thing was running. The full noon, they had things were running in and out. All the ones that they had blown up, they had to take into the graveyard, dump them in there. That was quite a night. Then we came back to our area. We were, I ended up went back to the hangar because we were up all night. Till noon, and we had to go to the mess hall, have our lunch. So the major went up to the hangar. He said, you guys get some rest. We'll have another crew in. Okay. So then, right after that, that was in September. November. First part of November. We were at a movie. And they broke in the loudspeakers following EM's report to the studio headquarters. So they were going alphabetically. They called 23 names. I was the last one. I said, what the hell? This is about 9 o'clock at night. And the mosquitoes were out there by the thousands. People get out of there, reported, and he said, pack your bags. Says, you guys going to the Philippines. 23, pack your bags, have them ready. They're taking out 2 o'clock. Down on the strip, there'll be somebody to pick you up. Okay, sir. Well, it's 1:30, they came and got us. There's this DC-3 sitting there. And that is young father. He was about 23 years old, 24 at the most. He was an Indian. They call him the chief. He was a hot shot. He says, how many guys? 23. Only one bag. Says the plane's full of fuel. One bag, and the seats were aluminum. They ran like this. All the bags up front. You guys get up front as much as you can. I don't want you spread out. The take off. We don't take off. We're going to land in the pond. Quite a load. This is to get off. Mm-hmm. Okay. We ran the engines up, checked them out. He said, we're ready. He said, you radio man aboard? I said, yeah, right here, Chief. He said, well, you can sit over here. And if we need use the intercom to talk back to these. So I was sitting next to him, like a co-pilot. So he says, we're ready to go. I get on the intercom. Okay, boys, we're ready. Down the runway. Runway went too long. Almost to the edge of it, that thing started to lift off. You can almost see the lady still just flapping. Get up there about 10,000 feet. Seemed like it took a half hour to get up there. Then he leveled off. We landed at an island called Morotai to refuel. And the Aussies had just taken that struck back from the Japs. We landed there. The Aussie says, we're going to fill you up, petrol. He said, you better be gone. They'll be back. So we're having a hell of a time with it. So we knocked out quite a bunch. But he says, there's more of them. Chief says, everybody stays on board, don't fool around. The fuel was on. We took out. We landed in Lakey. That was about 4 or 5 hours. We landed there just about daylight. And there were planes all over the place, doing runways. There was no place for us to go. So we just hung around the beach there a while. So I said to the one over to talk to one of the officers, and he said, well, you left to wait. He said, we got no place to put you now. So he said, well, just go in the canteen and get something. So I said, okay. I said, okay, boys, we'll in here. And we had coffee and donuts and stuff like that. Came out and looked around. You know, a bunch of B-25s were coming in. 2-engine bombers. And the first one landed was my old major. He says, hey, what are you doing here? I said, I don't know. We just got here.
How much do you know about your first wife's family?
Like Ronnie Crawford. So they were from Appalachia, Virginia. And she had one sister and 4 brothers. So I see Della, when Chip was only about 3 months old, that's when she got sick. Of course, nobody knew what it was. She had MS. Nobody would have really blossomed out, you know. Had her in the hospital there for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. They were trying to find out what was wrong. Half the time she couldn't see, half the time she couldn't walk. So the visiting nurse used to come every day and take care of Chip. He was a friend of ours. She was taking care of the woman next door. So she stopped in and see that everything was okay. But I was taking care of things, you know, while their mother was in the hospital. And I used to go to work at night. And the girl stayed there while I was working. That went on. And we got to the point, she go to the hospital, New England Medical Center, to the rehab. They tried all kinds of different things to, nothing worked. And the final end of it, that went from 1966. That was 16 years of that. I got a call at work around noon. Late September. It was the last of September, probably the day or two before the 1st of October. And I had to go to the hospital, leave everything and take off. And when I got there, she was on the what they call a critical list. And they had nurses around the clock, of course. She was having trouble, couldn't get rid of phlegm, so they had a suction machine going to help her so she could, otherwise the fill up down here, and that'd be it. Well, I stayed there from noon till almost midnight. And the head nurse came in. She said, I said, I think is there an empty bed? And she said, no, there's no empty beds. I said, I'd stay till morning. And she said, why don't you go home and come back tomorrow? We'll let you know. That was on a Friday. So I said, well, okay. So I came home. It was late. Chip was long in bed. And then that morning, Saturday was on Saturday morning, first day of October. I had gone to get some bread or something, milk or whatever it was. In the meantime, the phone rang, and the hospital had called that she had died. Told Chip that. When I came home, because I didn't know it, I walked in and but she was all upset. We had to go to the hospital and get that straightened out. And that was it.
Was that hospital in New Hampshire?
Yeah.
When we were driving today, Chip was telling me that she remembered driving up that same road to
That's
visit
right.
her mother
That's right.
very, very clearly in her mind.
Oh, yeah. And I'll never forget, it was pouring rain all day that Saturday. And of course, we had to make arrangements, phone calls. With Bob, he did a lot of telephoning, his relatives and whatever. And they all came. They all came from Michigan. So that was Saturday. And they arrived early Sunday morning. Monday was the funeral. Monday afternoon. And Warren Brooks, he stayed around. He stayed with me almost a week. And of course, summers, school was out. She told her grandmother came near them. And she stayed till she got sick. She wouldn't fly, so I had to put her on a plane. She had to go to Georgia for the summer. And she would take him to all these places, Grand Ole Opry, all over the place down south. And I used to go there vacation time. I'd go, and it's Christmas time. For Michigan. So, when she graduated high school here, George and I went to Eastern Michigan. We got that set up. Trying to think of the guy's name, began with a Z. He was the Missions, I think, Zonus or something. That was an odd name.
Mm-hmm.
Began with a Z. We get everything all set. And he told me what the deal would be. Tuition, and so we thought the first year she should stay on campus. And it was okay. I think it was around 2,000 a year, the whole deal.
A lot of money back then, wasn't it?
A lot of money is right.
Yeah.
But of course, I was all alone. What the hell? I didn't need anything. Well, wear one pair of shoes at a time, once pair of these, and that's it. So Food was no big deal. It was nice to get invited out to dinner with Nancy and Bob, so it was not really any problem. Uh, that's the way it went. It was quite a journey, I'll tell you.
Yeah, it was.
All the years. The doctor, about 1960, he wanted to put her in a nursing home. And I told him then, no way. I said, I would stay home, like go on welfare and take care of her. And she had to go to the hospital. It was right up the hill, it was no problem. So yeah, said him. JFK and was running for the Senate, running for the presidency in 60. He came to Fitchburg. Well, a friend of mine who used to be at the courthouse there was Registrar of Deeds. They were great buddies, friends with Kennedy. So he told Kennedy was the chairman of the MS thing that year. So my friend Bunny told him about it. He called me up. I was home, and he said, we're having a big party for Kennedy at the Oaks right over here. Said, you come over. And he said, I'll introduce you to him. You tell him what the story is. See, the doctor had written to the MS Society and to get a wheelchair or a walker. She was having trouble walking. So the doctor got a letter back from the society, and he called me. I came home from work about 3:30. He called me, the phone rang. He said, come over to the office. I want to see you. So I went over. He showed me the letter. They wanted me to send Chip out in the neighborhood to collect money from the neighbors, donations to buy this equipment. And prior to that, the doctor had, she was using cortisone and one other drug, ATCH, had to be injected. She was developing out of this business, in the legs. Stop it. And they were $18 a copy, and they'd last a week. Not even a week. Come Saturday, the visiting nurse would come. That was $3 a pop. She'd come every day. So you had to get 2 of those. I was only getting the bill code then, $40 a week after everything was taken out. Things were a little rough. So Kennedy, must have told my buddy, he said, we'll take care of it. Next thing you know, about day or two later, this truck pulled up with a walker and a wheelchair. No charge. But imagine, they wanted to send Chip out to collect. Doctor says, I never heard of a thing. He was reading it, upset. I said, there's no way. He said, look, don't worry about a thing. He said, I'm going to make arrangements to have it go to the New England Baptist Medical Center for some rehab, 3 weeks. And So he set up the thing, and we took it down. She went by ambulance to the from here to the Brigham Medical Center in Boston, and she was in rehab for about 2 weeks. They tried all kinds of things, nothing. Chip and I used to go every Sunday by bus to see Boston.
But John Kennedy pulled some strings for you.
That's right. He, unbelievable kind of a guy he was. Because I met him and Jackie there here that night. She was with him.
Really? You shook his hand.
Oh, yes. We had quite a conversation. He wanted to know how she was. He knew all about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how sharp the guy was. He knew the minute he heard my name, he knew what the story was. Want to know if I got the equipment? I told him yes. Any you need, he says, you have money, contact me.
Wow. It's quite a story.
He knows where to get me. Matter of fact, Kennedy stayed at his house on the south side. A lot of times when he come to visit here,
Mm-hmm.
when he was campaigning, I met him a couple of times after that. But he going to be spotty. He knew who you were. Called you by name. It's the kind of a guy he was.
Well, that's the reason why you're a good Democrat, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. They had one big wingding over here that night, I'll tell you. They came from all over. The place was jam-packed. He had Sorensen. They call them the Irish Mafia. It was 4 of them. And they had a state police out escort waiting. You had to go to Springfield from there. They left about 9 o'clock for a rally there at Springfield. 10:30, whatever it was. And the people were still waiting for him when he got there. Because he got an escort all the way to Springfield. Express, all. Was there no choppers in those days?
Yeah.
But he was really something.
Did you ever meet him again or just at one time?
He came here after that
Mm-hmm.
when they were campaigning. I met him one more time.
When he was presidential candidate?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Chick graduated high school here in '67. That's when she went to Michigan to stay with, to go to school at Ipsy, Eastern Michigan University. And she stayed with Georgia then. And I used to go out in the summertime
Mm-hmm.
and at Christmas time. That time I had 4 weeks vacation, so I'd take 2 in the summer, and I'd take one around Christmas, and I'd take another one whenever I wanted, So I had 4 weeks time. 4 was over, I had 5 weeks of Iltide. All paid vacation. That's about the only good thing. It was the pension. They didn't offer no pension deal. For every dollar you put in, they took out of your pay. They were supposed to put in 2.
Did they do that or?
But somehow the $2 got misdirected somewhere. So at the end, it was like an insurance policy, And of course, everybody used to wonder. And the money was supposed to go to the credit union up there in Clegon on deposit there, your account. Other than one day, I was getting ready to retire, and I asked of course, I knew the manager there, and he said, nothing. He said, in the meantime, the company was sold. This new guy, when he about to put he didn't, not interested in that deal. Nothing went in. So what accumulated was a couple of grand. that was about it. All the money was there. So the girl in personnel said to me, I said, "But this is quite an investment." And she says, "Well, what are you going to do?" Well, she said, you can Blue Cross and Blue Shield is good till your daughter is 21. If she's in school, so she's covered." And it was $12 a month. I said, "That's okay." So I signed up for that deal. That took care of me and Chet. And so then I asked her about the money. She said, "Do you want it by the month?" I said, "I want the whole, whatever it is." So she kept pretty good records to sell. She said, "This is it. You get about $2,200 coming." I said, "I want to check for the whole thing."
Get it away from them. Didn't trust them at all.
When did you start with stock market? When did you start playing stock market?
Let's know, when did you start being interested in the stock market and all the investments that you try to follow?
Way back when Lindbergh went through the Atlantic, we lived on Winter Street, and there was a tailor shop on Summer Street near the fire station. And all these guys used to bring their clothes there. The big shots used to bring their clothes. They used to make suits for them and dry clean them and all that stuff. And when Lindbergh landed, I happened in there to bring in some dry cleaning. And he said, "Did you hear about Lindbergh?" He said, "Yeah." So this guy was involved with the stock market to the tailor. He said to one of the men, he said, "You buy the engine that it was a Chris, not Chris Craft, but that company that made the engine that Lindbergh plane used." Says, "You buy some of that stock." And he mentioned 3 or 4 different things. He says it's every day in the Boston Traveler, the prices. So that kind of roused my curiosity. I said, "I'll just watch that Curtis and Wright interview."
Right.
And I said, I said, "I'll just keep an eye on this thing and see what develops." And boy, that stuff started to really go. And he, every day, half the time, he wouldn't be in there. He'd be up down. They had a ticket there, at the bank building. That's you never could get your stuff out of there. He was gone most of the time, fooling around with the stock market. I said to myself, "This guy must be doing all right." So he, all these people that, of course, I knew a lot of people that, in the synagogue, they're involved with stock market. You'd hear them talk about different stocks, General Motors, $4 or $5 a share. Guys, I just bought a couple of hundred of those. Different companies. You say to yourself, "Oh, this is really something." I used to buy that Traveler every day. And I remember the names and the numbers. I was always good on the numbers. I remember the numbers. So, of course, I never had that kind of money to be mine what these guys were doing.
Yeah. So they say it takes money to make money.
That's right. These guys were doing all right. Yeah, plenty of money.
Used to be in a stock club.
Yeah,
years
that's
ago.
right.
Are you still in that, or
No, that was done in 1989.
okay?
But the first thing I got was in 19. See, Chippi, we had some. She'd get money from Michigan and relatives. You know, they sent us some money for a birthday or whatever. So I had that in the bank. So this guy said to me one day, the bank was paying about 2%, 1%, 2%. Nothing, you know. There was about 500 in the bank. It's like, and I didn't want to touch that money because it was hers. This guy said, "This is a thing. You can't, nothing to worry about. One of the biggest oil companies in the world, Exxon, was standing over New Jersey then. Said, you buy 5 shares of that." What's it going to cost? You can, commission would be $5. If you did that today, it'd be 45.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, 5 would be about 250. He says, that's about right. I said, okay. So we made the deal. He called the broker in the bank building. And within a month or so, we got a certificate. And all of a sudden, we get a check. They were paying a dividend. I put that in the bank. But then they sent you a thing about reinvestment plans. So sign that to send it back. But then instead of getting the checks, the money went into the reinvestment plan. So then we started the little club at the plane. After that, there was 20 guys. They were putting in, have too much money, $5 a month. And we bought 2 or 3 different stocks. They were doing all right. And one of the guys decided that the action wasn't fast enough for him, so he got out and broke that one up.
Mm.
And I forget it. And after I retired, and getting the Social Security checks and all that stuff, they started a club with 20 guys. They were putting in 10 a month. We built that one up pretty good.
Hmm.
And that's when I got IBM, Exxon, Analog Devices.
And Abbott, I think, isn't it?
Oh, Abbott, that came later. Look, there was another one after that. And was Analog, they were giving, there was no cash dividend. They were giving stock dividend. They were giving it about every year. You get 3 for 2, 2 for 1, whatever. Built up pretty good. And this friend of mine at the fire station, he was the deputy chief. He said, we'll start the club here. Says, you seem to be knowledgeable, he says, about this stuff. You've been following a long time. Says, we'll take you in as a member. $10 a month. Okay, so we did it. We really went to town with that one. We had GE, we had Atlas, we had a couple of good utilities. Then as time went on, the guys built up pretty good. We had equivalent to probably pretty close to $6,000 a piece in there. Well, one guy needed down payment for a house, another guy wanted to buy a car and all that kind of stuff. So
I can't
I
die.
got up. So everybody cashed in. But I took the stock. I didn't take the cash. I figured this stuff is going to go. Like analog. They were making specialist chips that others didn't have. They're all specialized to a certain job for the government and for foreign countries. And then we had GE, we had that's when we had Abbott. We got Abbott, GE, Amoco. We got Amoco. We had
Yeah, Heinz too, didn't you? You get Heinz?
no, that was
later.
that was absolute. That one broke up.
Oh,
Then this guy come in one day, at one meeting, and he said about this outfit up in Nashville, New Hampshire, Edgecombe Steel. I said, how much is that stuff? He says, oh, about $5. $5, $6. I said, well, we'll have to check it out. See what the story is with them, see how they are financially. So I went to the library and checked them out. They're pretty solid outfit. So I was in the brokers there one afternoon, and this guy come in, this old guy come in, and he said, I've got 200 shares of Edgecombe Steel. To me. He said, do you want them? I said, how much? He said, $8. $800. If you want them, 16 for the 2. So, I dig up 8, but I don't know about the 16. Well, a friend of mine came in, he said, I'll take the other 100. I said, I'll take the 100 for 8. See you tomorrow. Okay, he said, deal done. That stock went to $40. They split it 2 for 1. And they were paying a small dividend. Didn't amount to nothing. Then over the years, they just kept splitting it. I wound up with about 1,300 shares
out of the original 100.
Out of the original 100. Then they decided to try to buy it. At first, they didn't want to sell it. And they offered them a pretty good price, but they said no. So what they did, said, we'll split it. I said, sounds all right. So what they did, it went down to $25. And they did it 3 for 1, so it was worth 75. So it went down to about 600. With all that fooling around, it went to 600. At $75 a copy. And they called it. They said, that's the deal. Either take it or leave it. So that's when I sold it and kept 5. See, kept 300. And I was going to buy get another car. I figured enough money to get, fool around and get a good used car. So in the meantime, they offered in the Globe one morning, I'm looking at the financial section to tell whether this woman, she had a lot of stock, that stock. and she sold the stock to this outfit that was going to take over.
Mm.
And she got $12 a share for it. It's only $6. They just doubled it. So it was $6 at that time. I said, well. And I was almost ready to, I'd have sold it the day before or the next day. I was going to get a deal on the car. So I said, well, so I called the broker. I said, I have to check this deal out. And he says, yeah, okay. So he called me back. He says, that's right. He says, you're right. He says, hold it. That's when I had 500, just under 592, and it went 3 for 1. And I got 4, not 300. I got 14,000 some odd dollars. So that's when I bought the Heinz and the Abbott and Analog. And there was about 1,500 left over. So I sent the money to Chip. Sent him a check for the rest of it. I didn't keep any of that. So from that 150 shares of Abbott, it grew to over 1,200.
Mm.
If there was 25 shares of Heinz, I went to over 100. And the Analog is still 100. Of course, the IBM had been split, so that got up, and the Exxon is pretty close to 100, and then Mike,
It's about 65, I think.
somewhere in there. See, that original 5 is now 65.
Yeah.
Oh, shares?
Yeah.
Shares, it's about 98.3.
Yeah, he followed it pretty closely. He checks the stock markets every so often.
That's right.
Following his stock. Kevin hasn't done it
Now
yet.
the Analog is starting to move. See, it's up to 20. I was over there this morning from up at the library, and it was 23 5/8. And that the time I got it, it was $26. So we're almost home. It was down to 5.5. Well, it's almost 5 times.
Yeah.
But the Abbott, that's the one that really went. And Heinz. At Heinz cost $1,400, and it's worth up $3,600.
Mm-hmm.
And the Abbott only costs about $67. That's worth it right now, about $30. Of course, the rest on pretty tough. Well, of course, Analog now is worth about $15,000. The whole deal is probably about $60,000. Yeah, in that area. Nothing.
Well, something. You had to have some seed money, and this grew, and you were patient, and
That's right. I bought the guys in a hurry. I was never in a hurry. This is it.
yeah.
Slow pace. You'll get that. If I'd have a lot of money, I'd have made $1 million.
Yeah.
Like the other day, this guy called me. Matter of fact, he called me again this morning. A retired fireman. Want to know about something? He says, "Hey, he said I should have taken your advice and some stuff." He says it's out of sight. I told him to buy GE when it was down about $40. It hit 100 the other day.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "What a dummy I am." I said, "Hey, well, can't win them all." But he said, "You doing anything?" I said, "No." I said, "We've got, Della and I have got Washington Gaslight. Got that at about 33. It's 44. Looks like they're going to split it. We've got that with 50 Abbott. We've got 200. 3 splits. In Baltimore Gas and Electric. Started with 50. and that's up to we built it to 100. They had a 3 for 2, so they gave us 49 more, 50 more. Get 150 of that one, 200 of that, and 100 of wasn't. They all paying good dividends.
Yeah. Thanks. Been doing
So
real
we get a
good.
few bucks.
We've been trying to teach the boys the same patience that you had.
That's right.
Just hanging on to it and
You got to be careful with
reinvesting.
your money. You don't throw your money around. Have enough so that when the time comes, you want to join one of these, like that in Royal Oak. They got that massive association of investors clubs.
Mm-hmm.
It's right there in Royal Oak. They'll send you a whole brochure, what you have to do, and they give you some pretty good advice.
Yeah.
We had that at one time. It used to be a couple of bucks a man. Now it's, I think it's 30. They kept raising the thing up. So the characters, I go to the libraries, and all these guys, 2 or 3 come over every afternoon. They're all with the market. They're always saying to me, "Boy, you sure can pick on."
Kevin, do you have any more questions?
Well,
Any more now?
Had a good one?
What else, Kevin?
mostly all the stuff that you answered.
I think you covered a lot of good stuff. What about you, Mike? You have anything else on your list?
Well, he answered all mine.
You boys, just be careful with your money. Save it up. This is the way to go.
Tell that to him.
You got to stay with established companies.
IBM wasn't doing that good.
Yeah, but IBM's going to get straightened out.
Yeah, you gotta be patient.
That's gonna
He'll
be-
bounce back.
That's going to be a buy. If it drops below 40, this guy's going to straighten them out. That's yours now.
Mm-hmm.
The dividend is down to $1 now, 25 cents a quarter, which is, he had to do something because things were getting out of control. They had too many people, period.
Got too big.
Got too big and too unwieldy. With all of their computers, they still couldn't control it. So something had to be done. And I just reading the other day in the Globe, they have a section there every Tuesday and Thursday. One guy is, matter of fact, on the night to visit, but that's the one I want to take. But sometimes I miss it. They have a lot of information on there. Friday nights they have a specialist comes on, an analyst, and he talks about different stocks. I said I'd be about the other week, couple weeks ago. He said I'd be a buyer of IBM, and they had another guy on drugs and stuff like that, and he runs a big fund, $6 billion fund. He says, "What would you be putting your money down?" He said, "Well," he said, "you got to go for the ones that are getting beat down." He said, "Which one would that be?" He says, "The drugs, drug outlets." He says, "Which one would you buy?" He said, "I've already bought a lot of it at the right price." He said, "Which one is it?" He says, "Abbott Labs." And he asked him, "What else did you do?" Analog devices. They're involved now with this high resolution TVs. To make the chips for that making. So when I heard that, my ears perked right up. I said,
You already made those decisions years ago, didn't you?
"Yeah, that's right."
Great.
This guy and another opened the library with, because the librarians don't like the sound on. But my friend from Gothic on, he turns it up a little. The other day they were talking about, they had this guy on that manages a fund. And he said, this guy's interviewing him, and he said to him, "What do you like?" "Oh," he says, "I'm buying these beat down drugs." He says, "I just bought 500,000 shares of Abbott Lab." I almost fell out of the chair.
500,000 shares.
500,000 shares
Wow.
for his fund. I said, oh, man. He says, rock solid, financially, no profit. He started talking about what they're coming out with, all these new things they're coming out with. It's like the rocket problem.
Yeah. It's just everything, every day there's something new coming out,
That's right. What they're developing, they're really up there on research and development. They don't waste nothing. Everything is done right. They got the management is in the right place at the right time, and they got the people that know what's going on, and they're doing the right thing. He said, I wouldn't put that kind of money in this. I figured they were headed for somewhere.
right?
So tomorrow, when I would go over to the library, there'll be a new value line thing out. Gives a study of all the companies, and gives what the latest deals are. So I make a copy, and I'm going to send them to you guys. I'm going to send you the copy for Analog and for Apple, Exxon, and for IBM and Heinz. See, that should be out tomorrow, or maybe the first part of next week. See, I read all the stuff over there, all the latest. That's how I keep
Information.
tabs.
Right. Yeah.
They get everything there. That value line deal costs almost $400 a year at service.
Yeah. It's expensive if you
They got
to it.
They get all the Standard & Poor's, all the Moody's about different companies tell you how they are financially. You can look them up in 2 seconds flat and find out what's going on.
All the history and everything.
How they are financially. If they're going to go broke, they're going to go this way.
Well, I think we can call it.
You got to save your money, boys. I'll tell you, don't throw it
Yeah.
around.
I think we can call it a wrap then, so to speak. Okay, because we're going to run out of tape anyway. And
Now you see, there's the Nitsa now with Michael's 5 shares. That started with 5. See what he's got now?
how many?
98.
98. He's been keeping track of it. I just keep it over to the side and don't bother
Yeah.
with it.
Now see, that'll be 100. That whole deal only cost $250.